We're standing on the cliff top overlooking Eastweir Bay and the Warren at Folkestone. And we've got the white cliffs, the chalk cliffs leading away towards Dover there. So we're on the eastern side of the town of Folkestone. This site's been known as a significant archaeological site for many years. There's a Roman villa was excavated just downslope from us in 1924. The excavation we're doing here this year is exploring an area to the north of the Roman villa, and we're getting lots of Roman features, sort of field boundary ditches, things like that, but we're also getting lots of earlier Iron Age features. So we have an Iron Age roundhouse, which was the sort of house that most people in Britain would have lived in before the Romans. We have a quernstone factory where they were making green sand stones for grinding corn, which was the sort of thing that was used before the introduction of millstones. It's a very significant site. There's lots of evidence here of trade with Gaul, modern day France, and with the Roman Empire in the decades before the Romans actually conquered Britain. So this site, for perhaps 100 years, that during the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD, was one of the key points of contact between Iron Age Britain and Gaul and Roman Gaul and the Roman Empire, and they were getting amphora with wine, big pottery containers full of wine from southern Italy, traded here. We found coins from across France. We found fine pottery manufactured in the Rhineland and France. So the people who lived here, the people who lived in this roundhouse, were well connected. They were trading with the Romans, and they were also producing these thousands of these quernstones, which they were in trading with other parts of Britain. One of the really noticeable features for anybody who visits this particular spot are these. There are 3 great big circular towers, 2 at either end of the site, one there just below the cliffs, one over there on Copt Point, perched on top of the golf course, and there's another one which people often don't notice, tucked behind the houses here amongst the trees, and that one's been converted into a house. These are Martello Towers, so they were built during the Napoleonic Wars, basically when there was a great fear that Napoleon would lead his army to Britain and invade Britain, and people realised they needed coastal defences to try to fight off a French invasion. And this chain of Martello Towers was constructed, and it stretched all the way down the coast to the Solent around the Isle of Wight and Portsmouth and places like that. And the one to my right up here is actually number 1 in the chain. So what we've got visible here are numbers 1, 2 and 3 in this long chain of defensive fortifications. They would have had a small garrison of troops. They would each had a cannon on the roof of the tower, and so these 3 would have been able to support each other. So this was obviously regarded as a prime possible location for some sort of French invasion or seaborne landing, and clearly if that had happened and the French troops had clambered up from the beach through the rather muddy cliffs below us and got up onto this top, they would have come under fire from 3 Martello Towers, so a cannon on each one, and they would have had to contend with a garrison of troops in each tower. Folkestone Roman Villa was first identified as a villa in 1924 by an amateur archaeologist and school teacher called S.E. Wimbolt, and in 8 weeks in 1924 he excavated the floor plan of 3 large blocks, so a winged villa, and then an adjacent block, and then a bathhouse. And this was a huge, grand building. It had underfloor heating, it had its own baths, it had glazed windows, a tile roof. It had a mosaic floor in the central one of the central rooms. It had painted plaster walls. It would have been a fabulous building that dwarfs most of the houses in Folkestone today, and would have had a fantastic sea view out across the channel to Gaul. The first version of this villa was built in about 100 AD, and that stood for about 100 years, and then that was levelled, and a second villa was built on the same sort of footprint, but with deeper foundations, and that was in use until the late 3rd century. We don't know who lived here, we don't know who built the villa, but there are some clues. First of all, there's the materials that the first villa was built out of. They didn't use the green sand, they didn't use this stone that had been worked by the community here for perhaps hundreds of years. They used flint, which you get off the downs, they used ironstone, which you can collect on the beach, and they also used a porous type of stone called tufa, which it was mined out by the Romans in Dover and was used to build a fort in Dover. And that fort was built by an organisation called the Classis Britannica, and that's the Roman Navy in British waters. And we found tiles at this site at Folkestone Roman Villa stamped either CLBR or Classis Brit, and these are tiles produced by the Classis Britannica, the Roman fleet in British waters. Their headquarters was in Boulogne. This site looks straight across the channel to Boulogne, and they had the fort in Dover and another fort along the coast to the west at Lympne. So this site sits almost in the middle of those three major fleet bases, and it's using the first version of the villa is built using very similar materials as the fort in Dover. So I think there's strong grounds for thinking that perhaps the first villa at least was built by the people connected with this significant, powerful Roman military organisation, the Classis Britannica.